Um, First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for actually inviting me to this conference. And secondly, I have to introduce myself as a Japanese historian, hence going through this field was such a new frontier for me that I had to have the help of my student, my master's student, Christine, who is unable to come here. This actually came about as a project when Dr. Karl actually visited the Philippines and gave a lecture to us about popular culture in Japan. And one of the questions that was coming about during that lecture was, do all Filipinos actually read the popular culture that you're actually working on? Or the popular, is the comics or is anything that you seem as popular culture actually read by all Filipinos? So we tend to actually explore it. So what I'm first doing is working with my framework. The idea, how I understand popular culture is using the framework of story, working with the idea that popular culture is mass culture. Everyone has to be able to read it. It has to be affordable. It has to be usable by anyone and everyone. Hence, just to give you a very short brief, I'm not going through my text anymore. Just to give you some lines, it has to be cheap. It has to be available everywhere. And in the Philippines, while we have this weird reputation of being great English speakers, it is simply a second language to us. So in order for a media to communicate to a larger population, it has to be in the national language, at least until the 1990s. By the 1990s, English then becomes a far more important language, but more or less Filipinos can speak both. With that out of the way, the idea then is to see where is the origins of popular culture for the Philippines. My history is now coming in, and I'm terribly sorry for all of this background. The thing here is that it has to come from the American style comics, and the first way of actually looking through its distribution is through this magazine, DYY, Filipino, which means breaking of dawn. It's sold by newspaper stands or newsboys. It's about 22 pages, just to give you an idea. It started in 1922. It had varied contents from novels, poetry, and serialized or novelized comics. And it was only published, its major publication is in Filipino, the national language, but it also made an effort to translate the entire magazine into 3 different major dialects, or if there are linguists here, 3 major languages in Filipino. It will probably span about 50 pages and would cost between 20 pesos, 50 yen, to about 100 pesos currently, or 200 yen. Just to give you an idea of what type of comics were actually published in these in DYY, we deal with American style 4-pagers. So in one aspect, it was readily available. You can just drive your car, a newsboy can just jump in. You can exchange it while the lights are changing, and it's not inconvenient to go through it, right? But when we go to the current distribution networks, unfortunately, these newspaper stands can no longer survive. By the 90s, what will happen is you will have a strong mall culture, shopping mall culture, shopping center culture that will pop up. Hence, these smaller industries, I'm not sure if you can even call them industries, have slowly dying. Hence, they will be replaced by the more evolved bookstores. This is just a profile To those who don't know what the Philippines is, this is the Philippines. And just to give you a profile of the distribution numbers. I start with bookstores simply because they now replace the newsstands for selling not only books but also newspapers, magazines, and so on. And well, I also did with comic book stores because they are now the exclusive distributors of not only comic books but also manga. If we look at the population of the Philippines, it's about 103 million, but our average income is around, I had to convert it to yen, which is relatively small, so it's around 385,000 yen. Meaning an average person will probably not spend too much money just for a hobby or anything that is beyond the basic necessities. So the argument that I have, at least for this paper, are manifold, and I do apologize for this because I'm swimming through new waters here. First, the distribution networks are inappropriate, or they are not really distributing to everyone. Secondly, the price ranges of the current or the evolved manga are too high, so much so that you might have willing consumers but cannot afford it. And third, the language that they will eventually evolve into using is something that is actually discouraging new consumers from consuming them. So first of all, I go through the three major bookstores in the Philippines. National Bookstore has about 128 branches around several islands in the Philippines. The problem with this bookstore is while it has a wide range, the sizes and the content of its books vary. So there is an inconsistency. The same thing can happen with branches of different bookstores, right? But this is our largest one. The second one is Power Books. Power Books will have about 12 branches, and they are also concentrated nationwide. And the third one is the more progressive, at least to Filipino consumers, Fully Booked, which unfortunately has it has about 20 branches. But just to give you summary points for this one, one thing is if you then go through the list of all of their branches, they're all Manila centered, Manila being the capital of the Philippines. So you have a lot of them clamped up in this area. I come from a smaller island to the south, and whenever I need to buy my manga and so on, I have to go up to Manila. And you know, in terms of distribution, it's quite tedious. They're all mall-based, meaning they're not actually like mom-and-pop shops, like the ones that you see here in Japan. Small, independent, not independent, small, stand-on-your-own bookshops. They have to be attached to a mall because they're relying on the foot traffic of the mall in order to get their customers. And they are actually surprisingly the last ones to pick up on the manga market. They prefer holding on to American graphic novels because they can get it by bulk and they can get it cheaply. And it's only in 2005 or 2010 when they realized the boom of manga consumption that they tried to pick up manga. Unfortunately, we're now dealing with an industry that did not understand the product that they were looking at. Hence, they were actually pulling in English language manga, which they are unfamiliar whether it's popular or not. So they just they draw in from Tokyo Pop, they draw in from Viz, but they don't choose actually the titles. They just order from the catalogs and then just jam it in their shelves. Next, you have comic book stores. Philbars is one of our oldest bookstores. It has about 18 branches. all over the Philippines. It's actually a hybrid of the newspaper stand and comic book store because half of the store sells American comics and half of the store sells local magazines and newspapers. The other one is Comic Quest. These are more professional comic book stores. It has 3 branches, all based in Manila, and it exclusively sells comic books and comic paraphernalia, toys, cards, and so on. Comic Odyssey also has 3 branches. The youngest one is Planet X, which only has 2. One is an actual store, the other one is just a park, but they have the same criteria as the comic book as Comic Quest and Comic Odyssey. There are still several other what I call indie comic book stores. Unfortunately, their lifespans were too short. By this year, they're already dead. So rather than introduce them, I just opted to go through with them, just pass by them. A summary for these ones. Again, these are supposed to be the main distributors of your manga. Unfortunately, all of them are still Manila-based. You will have 1 or 2 that will be in a central city in the south, but nonetheless, it's not enough to actually create that popular culture or that mass culture that you wish to spread this new media to. All of them are also mall-based, similar, so they actually compete with the bookstores themselves. Although in the genre of popular culture, quote unquote, they win obviously because they have a larger collection. These are owners that already know their material. They choose their materials well, but they only sell English language based manga. So the distribution network that they still hold on to is the American distribution network. And it is the American network that dictates what titles they then bring in to the Philippines. Then, the sad thing, there were 2 manga shops in the Philippines. Central Comic Headquarters. It will be embarrassing to say that my family owned it, which lasted for about 5 years. And another one was Teyata, owned by a Filipino woman who married a Japanese. The idea was basically simple. You do have a large manga consuming base. Why not bring in the actual material? So in our case, we did 2 things. We halved our store into the English language section and the Japanese language section. Unfortunately, we weren't in ties with the publishers then because we were naive and full of dreams and so on. So we tended to pay full price for our manga. Hence the prices that we charge our customers for a new piece of manga would be around in yen. For 1 tankobon is about 2,000 yen, which is just really expensive because in the Philippines we tax ourselves 30%. So it's a ridiculous thing, right? For Piata, they were actually able to charge a cheaper rate of about 750 yen to 1,000 yen. The reason would be twofold. The 750 yen would be Chinese translations of the Chinese pirated translations of Japanese manga, which Filipinos wouldn't even know. Because, Chinese, Japanese, it's like, which one's which?